Good day. Captain Haynes, Training Officer with the Salisbury Fire Department for today's training minute or two. We're going to talk about airbag safety for vehicle extrication, and I want to start with a quick story. So several years ago, the Salisbury Fire Department responded to a car accident, and upon arrival we found a four-door passenger car versus a dump truck. It ended up being a rescue, and the extrication involved door removal and complete roof removal. During the rescue, some of our personnel inadvertently cut into the pressurized cylinder for the side curtain airbags, and they did it on both sides of the car and the seat post, which is where the cylinder was located. As you can see, the airbag had not deployed in the accident, and luckily our actions cutting into it and jostling the cylinder back here did not cause it to deploy on the scene. So there were no injuries to our people, and also luckily the pressurized part of the cylinder, when they cut into it, didn't violently release. It released gently, so there weren't any injuries from that. And that's a good thing for us, because directly in the back seat between the two seat posts was one of our paramedics performing patient care. So lucky. As far as airbag safety in the vehicles, talking about how we can work safely around these systems, the first thing that we have to take into account is to understand that they're in the vehicles. And they're in the majority of vehicles that we have on the roadway and that we're responding to, so we always have to kind of assume that they're there. It's more likely that they are there rather than not there. And we're seeing more and more where they're throughout the vehicle, not just where we commonly see them up here in the dash and the steering wheel. So we always have to have a high degree of suspicion that these systems are in place through the vehicle. All right? So we talk about the ABCs of airbag safety. And the first thing that we want to talk about is the A. You always want to respect the path of deployment of the bag. So A, always respect that path. And the biggest thing is to not be in the path of deployment if the bag was to go off. So in the case of the front airbags, the passenger side dash and the steering wheel, straight out from the bag, you wouldn't want to be directly in front of that. If it's a airbag that's mounted in the side of the seat or under the dash for the knees, or if it's a side curtain airbag, you don't want to be directly where they would come straight down or straight out in either of those locations. So try not to have any part of you in the way of where that bag would go. The B is to always be aware that there's no true safe way on the scene to take that airbag out of action. We always have to assume that that bag is going to deploy or could deploy, even if it's already gone off. It may be a staged airbag where it's gone off the first stage, but our actions could inadvertently cause it to go off and fire the second stage. So you see an airbag, even if it's been deployed, try not to be in front of it and assume it could go off again. The C is to use caution when cutting. So any of these components that we find, we don't want to cut into them, such as we did with that pressurized cylinder. So in finding them, this is the next step. We have to do that. When we do our size up close to the vehicle and start thinking about the airbags, start thinking about removing plastic trim from inside the vehicle where those components are likely to be. So the A post, the B post, C, right on down the line. The plastic trim that's there that covers the inside of that post for decoration, if we can pull that off, we can rip and strip or peel and peek. And that's going to allow us to see what's back behind this plastic. So expose those pieces and don't cut into them. Tools that we can use for that, a simple flat blade screwdriver would work. It just needs to be rigid enough that it's going to actually pry and not flex. Some people use a spanner wrench. Other people have specialty tools that they use for that. Whatever tool you use, just try to do that process. Make sure you do it. So expose it, rip and strip, peel and peek. Always respect the path of deployment of the airbag. Always be aware that the bag could still deploy and that there's no safe way in our minds that we can make it safe. And then the C, always use caution when cutting. So when we expose the inside of that plastic, in this Toyota you can see the red paint here, what we would find on the inside is that there's a pressurized cylinder right here, and a side curtain airbag that goes all the way down the headliner of the vehicle. And there's a second pressurized cylinder in the D post. So neither of those are things we would want to cut into. Here's a representation of one here, and that's about what you'd see inside. So here's the side curtain bag that you might find if you peel the trim away from the headliner. This part is safe to cut into. You wouldn't cause any harm doing that. Even the metal tube that fires the gas to the bag is fairly safe to cut into. But the pressurized part of the cylinder down here, or the wires, you want to avoid cutting into that at all. that may change your extrication plan. And that may make you have to come above where that cylinder would be and cut higher instead of where you might normally want to cut, especially if it's something in the A-post. My normal plan would be to cut low and tip the windshield with the roof. In this case, I would have to cut a little higher and alter the way I would take that roof. So, always want to be cautious of that. For the other supplemental systems that are in the vehicles, such as the seat belt pretensioners, again, don't cut into them. So if you see them mounted on the B-post or C-post in the vehicle, depending on the type of vehicle it is, don't cut into those components, cut around them. And one of the best ways to disable those is either to disconnect the seat belt or to cut it so that if it did fire accidentally, it wouldn't catch one of us in it. So that's today's training minute. Airbag safety and extrication and the ABCs of airbag safety. Thank you.